we're talking about safe spaces that are not actually safe. Because at the end of the day, Alicia, hey babes. Oh my God. Okay. This is great. This is great. Um, but we're giving people a little bit more time to come in. I know I had a couple of people that said they wanted to hop in and join the show support. And just to kind of give you guys a breakdown of what we're doing, I'm going to cover some points, the flip side of the coin, the good and the bad of these sister circles, these safe circles, these individuals as well that showed up for me, and then just in general, individuals that show up for people while they're in crisis, while they're in healing, why they don't know, why they have no idea what's going on, and all of these amazing things. I thought I had my other painting out. And I would like to announce that I sold my second painting, the red one with the unk, and I was looking to see. Hold on, I want to grab it so you can see. It's hanging up. Where did I put it? Oh, found it. So CD Chase just got this one. This one just sold a little while ago. So congratulations. And this other one that was on the site sold yesterday. This is my favorite one. Both of them are favorite, but this one I was like, when I got the notification that it got sold, I was like, yay, oh, yay, damn, crap. Oh, woo, yeah, all the emotions, all the emotions. Um, and I will say on this one, I don't know if you can tell, but there's some scribble scrabble there. It's not scribble scrabble, it's actual affirmations. Some of my paintings feature intentional affirmations that encapsulate the energy of the piece, you know? So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I got a timer set and everything, child. So first things first, a couple of little things. Feedback is great. Engaging in the chat is great. Questions are great. Opinions, thoughts, all that's going to be acknowledged. I might get a little carried away with what I'm saying. I might not look and I might miss something. Just repeat it. I'm gonna catch it. Um, we're gonna talk about, let me turn this down. When the safe spaces aren't actually safe, and structurally, and also how it can eventually just not be the space for you or the person for you, and how that's perfectly fine. And then my favorite thing, and somebody in here knows this very well because they've been in my life for a long time, and just the natural flow of stepping back to give me an opportunity to regroup and reset, and then also stepping up to say, hey, we got to make some adjustments because there's some things that are changing and I need to shift my availability, my capacity, and then just acknowledging that and respecting that and knowing that it's from a place of love and it's not being blown off or brushed off. And then the other side of that, where it is in fact being blown off and brushed off because they are unable to hold space for you and just don't have the ability or the capacity to communicate that. And it happens. It happens. So, first thing, we're going to be talking about something that a lot of survivors discover slowly. I discovered it. Wow. I discovered it pretty quickly. I need to fix this. Hold on. Let's do it like this. Hold on. There we go. Oh, hold on. There we go. I had to set it for 90 seconds. All right. Live's over. Bye. 90 seconds. Okay. Anyway. So, not all spaces, some of them are read verbatim because that's just easy for me. So not all spaces that claim to be safe spaces are actually they don't actually have the capacity to protect you, because at the end of the day, you are fleeing a space where you are not protected, where you do not feel safe. And it is just as detrimental to stay in those spaces when you're coming into a space that's also not safe and it's supposed to be a supportive space or supportive person. It's, for me, it's almost like you might as well just stay in the space with the person, right? And sometimes when you're in crisis, you may just feel like, well, hey, at least it's not the person, but that's very dangerous. And we're going to kind of get into that as well. Um, and some people will only access you when you are dysregulated. And I'm talking about people that they lean into the emotional part of your crisis, your healing. You know, when you want to talk about the boo-hooey parts and the scary parts and the messy parts of the experience. But when you start to heal and grasp concepts and understand, they don't know how to show up, or they choose not to show up because it's not as exciting. It's not as animated. It's not as fun. It ain't tea, right? So sometimes when you start to regulate, you do lose access. They lose access to you. And we're going to talk about why that is. So when safe spaces aren't structurally safe, the protection, it's not determined by identity, right? Protection is not determined by intention. It's not determined by behavior. And a lot of communities believe that distancing themselves from an abuser is enough by announcing publicly, we don't support the abuser. You know, going out, making a post, especially social media, you know, oh, abuse is bad, abuse is wrong, because that sounds better than saying, hey, ain't nothing wrong with abuse, ain't nothing wrong with a wop, babaloo, bop beside the head. You know, no one says that, right? But someone who is silent when abuse is going on or when abuse is brought to the forefront, it's just as damaging as someone pretending to be or presenting themselves as a safe space. And you can say that all you want, but the actions show that. And we're going to talk about that as well. So we know protection is structural, right? Protection looks like consistent behavior, check-ins, whether they're activated by the person in crisis or coming out of the abusive situation, or the supportive circle or the supportive person. Something simple, hey sis, you good? Just checking in. And I am currently in two circles, two sister circles. One in particular, Tika is a part of. Sit Your Ass Down, Dallas. Sit Your Ass Down, Dallas. But the group that I've been talking about, I wrote about it in one of my articles, and individuals in the group reached out, while things were crazy, and checked on me and all that stuff. And another group that I was a part of that is on Substack, Creative Visionary, did something similar when I was in crisis at the very beginning. It was a lot more spaced out, but I had to supplement, if that's the word, because I didn't know those people as deeply as I know some of you. Well, all of you that are on here right now. So I leaned more towards the people that I've known for years, or the people that were part of the circle. And not necessarily comparing, but I started to notice that as I started to heal, as I started to need less consistent crisis intervention, the radio silence started to get a lot louder with Creative Visionary, with the circle. And this was a new group that initially, just a small, quick backstory. The abuser was a part of that circle. I was not at the time. And then eventually I was. But when I let them know about the abuse, they jumped on it. They kicked him out. They went on a couple of posts, and mentioned that they take abuse very seriously. And they announced that this person and their associates were removed. And that was great. And they had 2 or 3 check-ins. I had a video call that was a lot for me, with one of the individuals of the group. I engaged with a lot of the Sit Your Ass Down Tuesdays with the other sister circle. Indirect support was very helpful for me, and I started to lean more towards them. And the big break for me was, so the abuse situation ended in December. I connected in a group live on Discord with Creative Visionary on Substack, well, through Discord, fairly recently. And at that point, I was not as emotional. I was not as anxious. I was not as unstable. And the pre-game meeting that we had, there was some conflicting energy. And it was more along the lines of, I kind of felt like, and from what they were saying, it was like they wanted more of the emotional details, which I was already past in regards to sharing, especially with this circle. And because of the conflict, I still pushed through with the live, but because of the conflict, it was not a very healthy energy that I was feeling while I was in the live talking about the growth process. And there were times during the live where I felt like I wasn't doing it right. And that was a major, major red flag for me. Now, am I saying that this group is a bad group, that they are not a safe group for anybody? Absolutely not. But what I realized is as I started to develop and grow and heal, I was growing out of that type of support. And once the live was over, dead silence. And I decided to remove myself from Discord and to disconnect from them altogether on Substack because I no longer felt safe. I no longer felt seen. I no longer felt supported. And I wasn't feeling like that with the other circle and with these other individuals. So it made sense, just like with the domestic violence, to remove myself, right? And then everything just lit up. Everything was lighter. Everything flowed a lot better. It was very clear who I could contact when I was dealing with this particular thing versus just a regular chat or, a regular check-in. And I leaned into that more. Um, and that brings me to the next point. Like I said, I'm not saying that they're bad or malicious. It's like I wear a size 9.5 shoe. I'm not going to force my foot in an 8. It's not going to happen. So I just decided not to force myself in that situation. So it wasn't any malicious intent. It was just not the space for me. Um, I started to realize that they lack the capacity. And that's a thing that happens. And just like in a domestic situation, there was no need for me to say, hey, I've decided that you guys are, it was no need for that. The energy was cut, it was severed. That was it. There was no reason for me to explain myself because, again, similar situations, there was no point, right? Um, so the question I have here, this is a reflective question for you guys as well as myself. Where did you feel emotionally supported, but not actually protected? And you don't have to answer it in the chat. You can just answer it to yourself. If you have a pen and paper, you can jot it down, a journal prompt. But for me, when I was emotional, when I was unsure, when I was scared, when I was uncertain, when I was still kind of confused and dysregulated, it was a lot of sympathetic energy, which is cool. Even with some of you guys, it was I'm sorry you went through this. I hate that you went through this. I wish I knew you when you were going through it. I wish I was there. And, all of that, all valid. But outgrowing that is a good thing for supportive spaces and people who want to see you thrive, who don't have their own narrative for what your healing looks like. And the pressure that I felt was as if they had a narrative, like almost like I shouldn't be so clear-headed already with what I've gone through, based on what I've gone through. And I feel like social media has a lot to do with that because social media caters to the woe it's me forever and ever and ever when you're going through something. And if it doesn't look a certain way, now we're questioning the validity of the story or, the experience. And we can't have that. So that's something for y'all to think about. Um, the next part, I know I'm moving kind of fast, but I want to get to a certain part for a reason. So here's the next part. Okay. Many people genuinely believe that they are supporting survivors, but intention does not equal capacity. Someone can care about you and still lack the nervous system regulation required to protect you. Unresolved trauma limits capacity. When people have not preceded their own experiences, they may subconsciously withdraw when things become uncomfortable, prioritize their emotional safety over your structural safety, support you only when your experience aligns with their expectations. Hold on. And there's no expectations placed on survivors. There's also an expectation placed on survivors. Felicia said sometimes it's like the support is dependent on the performative victimhood. Yes. And that is exactly what I am experiencing with these advocators, these what do you call those? They get funding to help survivors and stuff. Um, you have to meet a certain criteria. And if you're not SI, treading on SI, any attempts, if you don't need meds, you know, apparent like clear, obvious illnesses because of the assault, physical assault, which I want to say that was not something I experienced. I did not experience physical, like boom, 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 that kind. Boom, boom, boom. But you know what I'm saying. I experienced financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, and sexual abuse, sexual coercion, and we know what that means, right? Um, and a lot of these agencies and a lot of people don't really have the capacity or the tools to show up for you when those are the types of abuse that you're dealing with. Let's see. People, let's see, hold on. Yeah. Okay. So survival must look visibly painful to be valid. Like, I remember, so one of the things I want to talk about this spiritual element, and I know some of you are familiar, if not all of you, the chakras, the crown, the third eye, throat chakra, the heart chakra, solar plexus, sacral chakra, root chakra. When I was in the space with Creative Visionary, my third eye and throat chakra were oh so jacked up. And for me, when my throat chakra is disturbed, my voice is very shaky. I stumble over my words. That's also a sign that spirit is telling me to shut the fuck up as well. But I push through it because there's an element of me that is stubborn, and y'all know me personally, so y'all know what that is, right? Tika said, I feel like I've shared with someone who responded with energy that shunned what or felt, who you felt victimized by. That wasn't the energy I needed. I needed forward moving energy. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, are you saying like, wanting to lean more into the person who did the thing? They wanted to get into the shenanigans more than the, okay, that happened. I'm sorry. That sucks. I hate that happened to you because you're great. What we about to do about it? Like being able to do that. Yeah. Like, honestly, there's no fun in that. Like, you supposed to ask me, girl, what happened, girl? And I'm supposed to think, he did. Hold on, girl, I can't. I can't. And you supposed to say, woo, woo, woo. Girl, take your time and tell me what happened. Tell me the tea. Because there's value in that for some people. There's so you could talk about that. You know what I'm saying? But what we gonna talk about with, I went through this horrific fucking situation and I know what it was and I'm naming names and I know what I need to do to get out of this dysregulated state. And I'm supposed to just say, okay, how can I help? That's boring. That's boring. And that's one of the reasons why it didn't work out, right? Let's see. I keep losing my space. Take your time, girl. Let me take these glasses off too. Take your time, girl. So people who are more comfortable supporting dysregulation than they are supporting regulation, because dysregulation reinforces their identity as a helper. These nonprofit organizations, that's the word I was trying to think of, they get funding because they help people come out of their dysregulated state. This is why I was unable to start counseling, because in order for me to qualify for counseling, I had to sit in a class to learn about the signs of abuse, because they needed to have the numbers that showed that we have these uneducated women that need to know these things. And we're doing our job by helping them, by educating them so that they know. And that's how they get their funding. They don't get their funding by sitting with somebody and counseling and listening to how they're regulating. Like that's later. They don't really get much from it with that. But on the individual, when you're not a nonprofit, when you're a person or a group, you're helping when they're hurting, when they're in pain, when they're confused, when they're dysregulated. Um, But regulated survivors, which is what I identify as now, we don't need resuscitate. We don't need help. We don't need recruiting. We need support while we are actively healing ourselves. And active healing is literally what it sounds like. I'm actively doing the things. Right? We're not just talking about, girl, you need to take a break. Oh, I know that was a lot. You need to rest. No, I'm actually taking a break. I'm actually resting. I'm actually regrouping. Like, this is not a facade. This is not me trying to save face because I don't want anybody exactly doing the work. I don't want anybody to know that I'm really hurting still inside. It has nothing to do with that. And I felt with Creative Visionary, it was like this fishing for, aren't you still hurting? Because I feel like I see, it seems like, it sounds like I was saying earlier with the throat chakra shaky. I remember one comment was made like, I can hear you holding back tears. I wasn't holding back tears. I was literally pushing through, spirit telling me to shut up. This ain't the space for this. But at the time, especially coming out of that emotional, the abusive situation, at the time it was better than that. So I was like, and I'm like I said, I'm stubborn. I was like, okay, I gotta still, I gotta make sure they know that that's not what this is. But it wasn't that I needed to prove something. It just wasn't something that they were able to understand. And I don't mean understand by saying I understand that you are struggling because you're trying to, no, actions show that they weren't able to receive me in that state. Um, then another question. Where did empathy exist without follow through? Empathy without follow through. I'm sorry you went through this. Okay, bye. Checking on you. And here's the thing, I'm not saying, here's what you need to do next time, y'all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying empathizing, sympathizing, showing empathy, and saying, because no one's going to say to me, that's what you get, right? Not out loud. But you might feel like energetically, we ain't going to talk about that tonight, though. Don't worry about that. But energetically, yeah. But no one's going to say, you should have known better. You should have did that. But when you empathize, if that's how you truly feel, you may be limited on how you follow up, how you know, go into, hey, just touching base. Because if you deep down believe that what they did, and this is another point, I would never put myself in that situation. That could have never been me. Like, that energy was seeping everywhere. I felt that from all kinds of places, from all kinds of people. And I could tell from their words that that's the energy that was behind it. And then the lack of follow through. And again, not saying you have to do it like this, but when it did not exist at all, it was just like, okay, so what was the point of me sharing all that? So you can say, could never be me. It could never be me. And as a regulated survivor, what am I supposed to do with that? As someone who is still in dysregulation and suffering and miserable and scared, confused, and all that, I mean, it's still not a healthy thing, right? Which leads me to the next section, projection and judgment. We do it all the time, sometimes louder than others, and we're human. It happens. If somebody says, man, I took a hammer and I hit my thumb with it and it hurt so bad, in the back of my mind, I'd be like, why would you do that? You don't want to move yourself out the way. Yeah. And that they know that they would never do anything like that. So for you to say, not only did you do that, it affected you this way, girl, what's wrong with you? I don't have anything to say to support you, to make you feel better about it, because who the hell does that? Who the hell allows that? Who the hell says that? Like, that whole energy. And it is projection. It's projection, and it is one of the reasons why people stay silent. I made a post on Facebook and Threads, and I asked, why is it that people stay silent, eat water? And my allergies, y'all, my allergies. But why is it that people stay silent? Because how dare I, this bubbly dancing ballerina unicorn, da da da, put myself in this situation. And it's almost like this vision of you knew, you saw, you were aware, but you chose to be stubborn. You chose to stay. And that is projection. That is not the format of, these types of situations, especially with this type of abuse. There's a conditioning that happens over time. And when, hindsight 2020, you look back and you're like, damn, that's what they were doing. But for someone who's on the outside, projection and judgment, they see that and they're like, you should have known better. Shame on you. So if it happens again, mum's the word, right? Okay. So projection often disguises itself as support. So, like I said, statements like, I would never allow that. You stayed too long. You handled it differently than I would. These are not protective statements at all. There's room for accountability without blame, shame, or judgment. Exactly. And for example, I like to use Felicia. When Felicia talks to me, there's this melodic thing that you do. And it's like a, hear yourself. Process that. I sit with it. Not once have I ever felt like, damn, I shouldn't have told her. Now she's going to be looking at me funny. Never, ever, ever. And I've known Felicia, I feel like before 2020. Before 2020. And this is not my first rodeo. This is not my first time in being in a space of dysfunction. But knowing that she was not going to say, well, it happens. Stick beside it, girl. None of that. She wasn't saying stay, but she wasn't saying what she wouldn't have done if she wouldn't have, even in my state of trying and sitting in the car on the phone with her and crying and trying to understand why and being so confused. Not once was it like, well, you shouldn't be confused. Duh. Not once. Not once. And I feel like even if she hadn't said those words, I mean, she never said, I know you know better, you know not to, but the energy was very supportive and very, now I want you to take that and sit with it. When you're done, throw it in the trash because of who you are, not who she is, because of who you are. And I feel like to a certain extent, if you know the person, at least if you know their baseline, that's something that you can say with confidence. Like, and then we could laugh about it later. Like I can initiate a little chuckle fest. Like, hey, King, hey. Thank you for joining. Yay. But, later on, just be like, man, I really thought that this, like, even the art of I'm regulated. This person enters, they do the thing. Now I'm dysregulated and I leave and I go regulate and then I come back and they do the thing. And I was okay with that for a time, but not once is it okay for somebody outside of me to go, you shouldn't have did that. That's not how you should have. I wouldn't have, like, that would make somebody feel stupid. That would make somebody feel just like, because we were talking inner child and, present person with a kid. Your child falls and trips because they were running after you told them not to run, or they know what could have possibly happened because, the bumpy road, whatever. You're not going to say, and I see you big dummy. You're going to be like, okay, next time we use our walking feet. I love you. Are you okay with, be careful. What did you learn? You got a bobo? Oh, like you sometimes, especially with something like that, you kind of have to treat it like that. And people are not equipped to do that. People are not equipped to do that. And sidebar, some people are not equipped to do that because they have their own version of settling, their own version of whatever it is that they've gone through or going through that they've decided to adjust in creative ways to make it to where they're just going to stay. And how dare I, in spite of what I was going through, whether it was perceived to be worse than what they went through or whatever, figure out a way to master the regulation and the extraction of the trigger, and then find a way to balance out. Like, that person can't show up for me. That person cannot show up for me. It's just, it's not possible. So we almost done, kind of, sort of, maybe. So I want to mention something. I did cover it in some shorts on TikTok, I think. And I know everybody don't have TikTok. I have to let people, hold on, get there on their own. You can't give people the answers without learning the work and expect them to understand how to get there. You have to learn the work. You have to acknowledge the work that needs to be done. And then you have to integrate. You have to give yourself an opportunity, the time to integrate, right? There's going to be a moment where once upon a time you saw absolutely nothing wrong with and you compensated for the thing. But now that we see what it does to our nervous system, our body, our mind, our spirit, our soul, it may be time for change, right? And that's not something somebody can force us to do. I don't care. Like, I mean, I used to be one of those friends before anything ever happened to me. I would hear about some dysregulated relationship. You're a fool to be. It's like I've been on the other side. Like, I couldn't understand how you would allow this. How do you not know that you shouldn't be? That's not helpful. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. And you don't even have to say it like that to the person. The energy speaks for itself. And you know the difference. You know the difference, right? Okay. So this is a quick little question. Um, let's see. So, oh, not a question. I was going to say this. So I covered a little bit about the different labels, and I roll my eyes because as valid as the labels are, the narcissist, the anxious avoidant, all this stuff, and we've talked about this before. At the end of the day, whatever the label is, your body is going to respond. Like, had I started this live and King came in here and I went from this to, I don't care what he's labeled as, that is a sign that this person need not be here, right? That this person is not safe. So whether they identify as a whatever label, or the mom did this and the dad when they raised them and the mama wasn't thinking, when you interact with me based on however all that stuff, however that plays out for you, if my body system is dysregulated and imbalanced and dysfunctioning, or constantly doing and undoing, I feel like for me, I have to focus on that. Because if I say, um, the narcissistic man who does this textbook narcissistic stuff, I'm focusing on those descriptive things. And I actually did this with the anxious attachment and anxious avoidant pattern. Or just, what is it? Like dismissive is another one, not anxious avoidance, another one. Dysregulated, I can't remember. But I started to focus on how to coexist, what I needed to change so that they would not do whatever they were doing as their particular label. And it was like beating a dead horse. There was no point, because even though Sigmund Freud and all these other gurus and all these books and stuff were saying things that were valid, verified, studied, tested, and all this stuff, doing whatever it was, I was completely omitting the things that were happening to me internally, emotionally, spiritually, all of that. And then all the other qualities that were, that technically, I don't know, they maybe weren't listed as narcissistic tendencies. Maybe they were listed as something else. Like, I'm not going to call externally focused. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to call an ex-friend a narcissist, but the fact that they would make me feel bad if I didn't answer their phone at the second ring. And when I saw them calling, I would get heart palpitations. I don't care about your label. My body is saying, you ain't it. So I can go read a book about all this other stuff, but I need to focus on what my body is telling me. And my body was telling me that this interaction with this person, whoever they are, it ain't safe. By the way, if you have TikTok, I did a funny analogy about bad tasting crawfish, and you have to see it. It makes so much sense. And coming from me, knowing, how much I love seafood, I thought it was funny. But anyway, So let's see. So the next section, let me see. Two more. Yeah, two more and they're short. So this is the next section, active healing and access. Active healing changes who has access to you. This is something that many survivors do not expect. When you're overwhelmed, dysregulated, and in survival mode, certain people are able to show up easily. I've had moments where I had a friend have to show up at the house. I was like, I was a mess, shaking like a leaf, shaking like a leaf. Like they had to hold me. It was so much. Luckily, that same person is still in my life. Those same people are still in my life as I regulate myself. But in a lot of situations, they can't show up when you're not like that, right? And it's not because they're harmful. It's not because they're bad. That's why when I mentioned creative visionary, that circle, I didn't say they're horrible. Like I'm not going to make a post warning. Don't. It's nothing like that. It's just in a certain state, it just was not beneficial for me anymore, right? Um, the dysregulation is familiar to certain people, right? A lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, we don't do the work. We have certain things that we avoid doing the work. We don't want to sit with it for too long. It's too uncomfortable. It brings us back to the space, da da da, and all this stuff, right? But in these dysregulated survival mode spaces, the dysregulation is familiar to them and it matches their nervous system state and it allows relational access. I think somebody said something earlier similar to that. Um, but active healing, on the other hand, it changes your nervous system, right? Active healing looks like, for those that don't know, emotional processing, nervous system regulation, clarity without emotional collapse, reduced reactivity, and increased self trust. And you cannot accomplish those things if if you're engaging with someone who makes you feel like what you did was wrong, stupid, you should have known better, or they're wanting to know about the scoop and the skinny and the tea, right? Or coaxing you or making you feel like, you should be sitting in the sorrow of it, the disappointment of it longer because that's what they're familiar with. That's their jurisdiction. Like, it doesn't work that way. And that can trigger people when you're actively healing yourself, when you're actively engaging and you're doing the work and you're integrating, right? And not because you're doing something wrong, but because your regulation removes familiar access points. Some people only know how to connect through chaos. Some people only know how to connect through pain. Some people only know how to connect when you are small. That's the big thing. When I tell you I felt like a tiny little dried up raisin, and a raisin is already dried, it's already a dried grape. But if you ever drop the raisin somewhere in the sun and it sit out there and it's all shriveled up, I felt like that. And there was a flock of people that showed up while I was in that state because that's familiar. That's put on your dun da 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 and save me because I am giving up. I've given up. I don't want to do this anymore. I've even had this. I've said this. I don't know if I can do this anymore. To the right people and the wrong people, I've said this. And it was a different response when I said, wait a minute, yes, you can. And it wasn't because one of you said, damn it, yes, you can. Stop saying it. It was because I took the time to sit with myself and pull myself out of it. And I had support while I did that as difficult as it was. Um, let's see. When you become regulated, they may withdraw, which I experienced, lose interest because the story's boring now, right? Become uncomfortable and become triggered by your growth. Yeah, for sure. And not because you've rejected them. I never once said, F them, these people ain't shit. I'm about to, nothing. It was nothing like that. It was because my nervous system changed. It was no longer flowing with how they were showing up for me. Active healing removes access that was dependent on dysregulation. I think you said that already. And it's not punishment. It's not a bad thing. Dallas is moping around. Uh, that's 6. Okay, almost done. Section 7. This is my favorite part because we've talked about this before, and I think I wrote something on it during the abuse, and maybe after. Complacency, settling, and emotional homeostasis. Emotional homeostasis. I need y'all to go look that up if y'all are not familiar, because this right here is like the meat and potatoes, right? People have their own version of settling, their own version of complacency, their own level of emotional tolerance. When you leave yours, it can disrupt theirs. It's going to either be an inspiration or it's going to be a trigger. You see somebody went through something, job loss, homelessness, and then they found a job, and like Sunflower is her name on Facebook. I don't remember the meat and potatoes of the beginning of her story, her origin story, because I didn't know her just yet. But she's like a flight attendant now. And she's so badass. Like she moved from Texas or some part of Texas. I think she's still in Texas, but she's very front facing with her story. That's why I'm sharing it. And I remember her transitioning. I remember when she bought her house. I don't own a house. I'm not a flight attendant. I'm not making that kind of bread. But guess what? When I saw that, I was like, no, this is great. She overcame her version of dysregulation, and that's what she accomplished. On the other hand, I could have been like, hmm, because I'm over here trying to figure it out, and she just got her, hmm. I have people in the most beautiful relationships. And I'm sitting here struggling with mine. And I'm like, you know what? She did the damn thing and she aligned with this person. And this is freaking great. And I'm not saying no name, but if I'm in the line of what I'm saying, are people that have dealt with relationships and they said, you know what, I'm getting too dysregulated in this shit. I'm out of here. And I was still in my dysregulated shit. I was like, yo, that's the homie, and a homie showed up and showed out for herself, and that's what it looked like for her. I'm a little inspired. Let me ask her a question real quick. Let me get him on the phone and let's have a little chit chat. Or, well, you shouldn't have been with him that long. You should have probably. So it's gonna be a trigger, or it's gonna be something that's gonna inspire, and your growth becomes evidence that change is possible. That's a very important quote. Your growth becomes evidence that change is possible. It may not look like my change or your change, but the act of saying, this is it for me. Oh, this is suddenly not it for me. Oh, I'm out of this shit. It's possible. How? The duration, that has to do with the individual. But to see someone, in spite of what they've gone through, you don't look like what you've been through. In spite of what they've gone through, they have found their version of happy, and you are choosing, like when I was choosing, no, I'm in college, I'm taking psych classes, I have the data here, I was printing out and wasted so much ink and paper printing out actual factuals, and I realized for me that wasn't it. And I realized that the change I needed to make wasn't in trying to explain myself. And I think I said to someone, giving them a script, a diagram, a play sheet, I saw that wasn't necessary. I saw that wasn't working for me. And I saw what it could look like with someone else when they decide, hey, this is who I am. This is what it is. Show up or get out. And then I configured my version of it. That's like, my locks don't look like your locks, but we both got locks. But my process is different. That's why they look different. It's not good, bad, bad, and wrong. It's my version, your version. Your regulation confronts their avoid. Yeah, your regulation. Oh, hold. That's what I want to say. Hold on. Your growth becomes evidence that change is possible, and not everyone is ready for that evidence. Your regulation confronts their avoidance. Your healing confronts their stagnation. This is not your responsibility to manage, which is why I left. Your responsibility is to remain honest with yourself. And I had to honestly say that when I started to wake up on my own time with the support that was supporting me and my awakening, I started to feel unsupported by certain individuals and certain groups. And instead of trying to direct them and navigate them in the direction that I needed them to go so that I just removed myself because that was safer. And the last part, personal reflection. So let's see. So these were some of the questions that I asked myself about the Creative Visionary Circle. This was a space that I appeared in when I was still dysregulated and disappeared when I became regulated. These questions they helped me understand my own experience. I'm not going to read each question because there's like 10, but the key ones, like I mentioned earlier about the third eye, the throat chakra, the also heart chakra, it was just this very weighted, heated feeling that came over me that I didn't like. And I have the right to kind of compare how I felt when I wasn't connected with them, or even wasn't connected with you, wasn't connected with you guys. Like, how did I feel when I was doing the work? And was that feeling complimented when I showed up with you guys or in certain spaces? And if the answer was no, I had to get out. Only offering support when people are in crisis keeps people in crisis. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I remember when my mother passed away, I had an aunt who I had not ever spoken to in literal, like, I think my mom passed when I was 31. And the last time I saw her, spoke with her, I was in elementary school. First of all, she called me by my full government name, like all three syllables. I was like, absolutely not. You don't know me. But continue, please. And she commenced telling me, I know you're feeling hurt. I know you're feeling confused. I was like, you know what now, Miss Cleo? What are you saying? And I experienced something. It wasn't as direct as I know you're feeling this, but it was that, like, putting thoughts in my head. And had I not been so solid, so grounded, it would have pulled me down. Like, you know what? Yeah, I am. Cause this, and of course, typically if you hear surface level, yeah, my mom passed away. Oh my God. No one says, oh, my mom passed away. And you're strong, right? But for me to say that, I never heard from her again because she was not, no, she didn't know what to do with me when I said, I'm actually not. I'm actually by a friend's house right now and they're making sure I eat and we're hanging out looking at old photo albums like I'm good. And I wanted to be like, is there anything else you want to assume? I didn't, because that's, at the time I was like, that's still family. But projecting, because I don't know, when someone passed in her life, maybe that is how she felt. And shortly after she called, after her passing, she called shortly after. And I don't know, maybe when someone called her shortly after whoever passed, she was just like that. And I get it, it's valid, but don't be putting that shit over here. And then if you do that, and I say, actually, no, the offense, the silence, that's just letting me know that, yeah, I'm not going to be calling you to be doing no check-ins or anything because you don't get it, right? So we talked about that. Um, there was, let's see, the behavior changed as my clarity increased. There was a little pushback and there was a question of whether or not I was actually doing the work. And I can't remember, like, I'm not quoting anything. I don't have anything written down verbatim, but it was along the lines of like, I know you're wanting to do this live. I know you're doing all this writing and I know you're doing all this process, but are you actually healing? Are you actually doing what you're writing about? Because according to the time frame, I feel like maybe not. You sure you want to do this? Are you ready? Because it seems like, according to the stats, maybe you're not. I'm just trying to be helpful. I'm just, I'm looking out for your safety. Now, I will say, if I told one of y'all, hey, I'm getting married tomorrow, I'm sure I'll get a knock at the door and somebody will have a chunkla or something like, yo, wait, hold on. But even that, it would be grounds for conversation. I mean, I'm being silly, but like it would be grounds for conversation. Like, whoa, 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 hold on now. I want to talk about what you've processed so far since this is where we are now, but not so much like, well, I feel like, oh, are you? Yeah. But no, T does that. Tika does that. Like, I'll say something. I'm like, yeah, man, because I'm trying to figure out da 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 da. It's just like, okay, is that's gonna be the angle? Okay. And she'll say it, and I'm like, she's like, is that gonna be the angle? Then I go, shit, should that be the angle? Give me that back. Let me check. Hold on. Can I call you back? Cause but it was never like you're not allowed because even if she wouldn't have did it if it was her, it has nothing to do with it. It's just the opportunity, like, okay, I hear you. That's great. But that look, okay, okay. I hear you. All right. All right. And I don't know. I know the patterns. And like I said, I've never, and then Felicia, I know you know a version of me that used to be super, super, super defensive, super defensive. But even that, the same thing. You'd be like, okay, well, so spitting back what I said to them, like, okay, well, I know you said this is what was going on. And where you are now, you're wanting to do da da da. All right. And I go, dang, okay, give me a minute. Let me think about it. And it's received different. It's received different. And it gives me opportunity to sit with myself, not to feel shame, but to sit with myself and maybe reanalyze. Because that's what the nudge is. The nudge is like, just hope. When is the wedding? But you want to go have some kava? Oh God. Okay. And let's see, one more question. Yeah, we talked about a lot of this. Um, Here's the big whammy, I think. What did their absence reveal about the nature of the connection? I concluded that it was surface level support. I concluded that it was safer than saying, "Oh, you's a fool for dealing with that." Hey, y'all, Creative Unicorn was a goddamn fool. Talk amongst yourselves. Ask me if I give two shits, right? But publicly saying that's just not that's not PI. It's just safer to say, what is it? We stand in, what's that word? You know the word. What is it? Creating space for you to sit with and hear yourself, not feed you the answers. Yeah, that I want you to draw. Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, the difference between what I experienced with them and what I'm experiencing now is I have the opportunity to breathe and process. And the breathing and process with me not being on the phone or y'all being here or me being there, it's not received as abandoned solidarity. Yeah, we stand with you in solidarity. We we stand with you and protecting our borders. That sounds better than what they probably be saying at tea time. They also can't say, well, this is so illogical and wrong and inhumane, because then they'd be contradicting themselves. But we can say we stand. It sounds better, right? But the supportive evidence, it wasn't there for what I needed, right? But to wrap that up, yeah. Um, so not all connections are designed to grow with you. That is romantic partnerships, friendships, sister circles, brother circles. I guess, is that what y'all call them? Brother circles? I don't know. I don't know. Bro, bro groups, man huddles. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, not everybody's meant, all connections are not designed to grow with you. Some exist to meet you at a specific stage. Again, there was value in the initial connection with Creative Visionary. It brought me peace to know for a fact, not just being said, that they removed the person that was abusing me, excuse me, from their circle. That was great. Now, had they said, well, I feel you, I'm sorry that happened to you, but, he's teaching us these things and it'd have been a different outcome, right? But it did something for me at the time, just like somebody saying, wow, what an asshole. He would do that. That did something for me at the time. But here we are, February. I don't want to talk about what an asshole and how dare he. That doesn't do anything for me, right? And when you move forward, when you move forward, they can't follow. And that's not failure, that's clarity. Like, you have to be able to acknowledge that. You have to know that as people grow, you have a choice to, ask yourself, can I grow with this person as they go through this phase? Or do I have to raise my hand and say, whoa, 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 I know you're going through it, but I need you to give me a warning when you're going through it, sis. I love you, but hold on. Or say, you know what? Every time she's doing it, it's giving me some dysregulated vibes. And I can't do it. I love you, but I'm going to love you from over here. I can't do it. You cannot call me for that. And it has to be, or flip it around. Having someone say, look, I see where you're going with all this, but, it's a lot for me right now because I'm also going through my own process. I got friends that are in college. I got friends that have different obligations outside of the home, inside of their home. They have kids, they have pets, they have they have whole relationships. And God forbid I go, well, you must not be my friend. You must not give a shit about me. Right? So just knowing the value of the connection and knowing that there's room to grow with some connections and with others, there's not. You have to sever. I mean, it would be foolish. I would have to say, okay, Kim, this is foolish, bro. If I leave a toxic relationship, remove the person, and then when a friend or circle says, hey, I know you're dealing with something, but I need you to know that I'm also dealing with something. Not my situation's worse than yours, nothing like that. But, I've got other obligations and I unfortunately cannot do this particular thing for you, with you right now. I need a warning in advance. And I go, but you don't understand. I'm dealing with it. I'm just repeating cycles. Or with them, I'm celebrating that I've gotten rid of this toxic thing and I'm calling them I don't think I did this with any of y'all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm calling you at 4 a.m. "Ow! Ow!" And you're going, oh, God. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're going, dying, struggling. And then get off the phone. Okay, call me tomorrow. Oh my God, Kim's. Oh. So, yes, you want to break cycles? Those friends, those circles, that's the place to start. You want to see if you've integrated something? Apply it in those circles. I ain't feeling this. Remove yourself. I'm feeling this, but I want to tweak that shit. I got to let her know. Tell me. I want to hear what you got to say. Let me process it and then move accordingly. Relationships of every type must continuously evolve or stagnate moment to moment. I'm still friends with, look, here is a picture. These are my elementary school friends. Look at me right there. These are my elementary school friends. We're still friends. Not because nobody don't say shit. Not because we talk about each other amongst ourselves. But we talk about, hey, I was in crisis. That was one of them was the one that was actively helping me get through all of this stuff. And I was dealing with some stuff earlier. And I text her, hey, are you busy? I'm about to freak out. She said, yes, I'm ripping and running doing errands. We will touch base later. And you know what that did? That prompted me to say, okay, she's not available. What can you do right now? You know who taught me that? Y'all did. You know who guided me through that? Y'all did. You know who took the reins and went, I'm about to freak. Kim, no, you're not. I did. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And in closing, we got 4 minutes left. Okay. You do not need to force yourself to remain in spaces that cannot hold your regulated self. You do not need to shrink to maintain access. You do not need to perform pain to remain visible. Protection is structural, capacity is behavioral, and your healing will always reveal the difference. Romantic, platonic, workforce, even these agencies that I'm going through to get back into the medical field. Like, for me to go to one with my certs and they say, well, I don't know what an EMT is, but we got this forklift job. I have a decision to make. And as difficult as it is, just like it's difficult, as difficult as it was for me to go, okay, cool, I have this circle, I have this, oh shit, no, I don't. Fuck. It had to be done. Because if I force myself into it, I'm just going to be repeating the cycle. I'm going to be shrinking myself. And as a business owner, celebrate 8 years this year, by the way, I just can't do that. I can't. And knowing that the best thing that I can do is continue to integrate these new practices and break these old cycles and be loud with my ask and allow people to show up at their capacity and not take it personally when they can't or they're only, I don't like using only able, but you know what I'm saying? Like if I say, yo, Felicia, I need $8,000. She might not be able to do that, but I know she bakes. So when I have my nothing day, when I do absolutely nothing to reset my system, I bet you I can call her and say, hey, can you bake me some cupcakes? And I'm at peace with that. And that works for her. And if it doesn't, hey, all good. You know what I'm saying? So it's being able to know that I can safely ask her what I need to ask her and allow her to tell me what I need, what she needs to say to me. And if if it's not in flow, it's not in flow. It's not because she hates me or doesn't want better for me. It's capacity. It's just that's it. And there's no shame in that. So yeah. But what I'm doing right now as far as updates, I just wanted to share with y'all. I am going back into the medical field. I have not announced it officially, but some of you guys will know via text message what's about to go down pretty soon. It's not anything instantaneous that's going to allow me to take care of some things that I need to take care of, but a lot of you guys have shown up in various ways that's allowed me to handle things like putting gas in the car and putting food on the table because I am in a space where I'm not able to efficiently do all that stuff by myself. And I have my little sales and I have my, my Cash App. I have a lot of donations and things like that. And it's just the little the little stepping stones that when it comes together, it's allowing me to accomplish a goal. That's why it's important for me to have a goal. A lot of these, just letting you know, is but no, I know. But just knowing that these agencies, like, I don't know if it's Texas, people say it's Texas. And depending on who you ask, they say, no, Texas has a lot of amazing resources. But okay, I'm not going to argue with you. But a lot of these advocacy programs, if I'm not in a shelter, sorry, excuse me. If I'm not in a shelter or I have some kind of block on my employment thing, like a criminal thing or something, or yeah, something crazy like that. The most petite sneeze, yes. People used to not say God bless me because they didn't know if that was a sneeze. They couldn't tell. So, and then apparently my son said when he was little, my cough sounded like a sneeze. So I would cough and he would say bless me. So I just said thank you and left it like that because that's how he could show up. That was his capacity. I wasn't going to sit there and say, that's not where you tell me that. You're supposed to, pointless. But anyway, so yeah, these advocacy programs, when I was in shambles, their goal was to see if I needed to go to behavioral health or have somebody come to the house to check on me. I even had friends when I would call and I'd be in shambles. They wanted to know, like, if they had the capacity, do you want me to come over there? Do you want me to sit with you? And it was because I was so upset and frustrated with the process. Even in that dysregulated state, I would either say no or I don't know. But then going into these places, not in shambles, saying, look, this is the path that I was on to begin with. I was in college, acing my classes. I'm a business owner. I'm currently 7 modules left out of 50 modules to recertify my national registry. I want to go back into the medical field. I have the experience. They were like, you're not dysregulated enough. And I made a comment today. I was talking to a lady and I told her, like, I can't remember exactly the verbiage, but I was like, I'm not trying to be, and I kind of told her about like my resume and the national registry officer. And I was like, I'm not trying to be in a situation where I don't know what's going to happen next week, like where I'm going to live. And she called me back with information about a shelter. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Why? She's like, well, when you said you didn't know where you would be, I thought you meant. And I dealt with that. Like, I don't even, with some of them, I just decided not to even interact anymore because I would get on the phone and I would be so emotionally just discombobulated trying to get them to understand, like, yo, I know what I want to do. Like, I'm even doing a job right now that has absolutely nothing to do with me. Pay wise, responsibility wise, location wise, hour wise, none of that. And I took it because I didn't have anything at first. And they were just saying, like, take this and you do it for a while until we find something. And then I'm doing all footwork to try to do the thing that I'm put on this planet to do. And in the midst of the frustration, they were just like, well, do you need, what did they say, behavior services to show up? Hold on. But they were like, yeah, do you want us to send someone? No, I'm not like in that type of crisis. I'm frustrated that I'm not bad off enough. And in those situations in the beginning, I started to notice I was doing the same thing. I was like, this is not the people for me. This is not the place that has the capability or the capacity to represent me. And I'm trying to force it. And I'm trying to explain to them what it is I'm trying to do. And they were just like, yeah, I don't know. Can you drive a forklift for $11 an hour? No, I literally can't. I don't have the licenses for it. I don't why is that even and they would just be like, "Oh, dysregulation." I'm like, "No, it's not dysregulation. It's frustration." Right? So, that's pretty much it. And I really appreciate you guys um hanging out and hearing me. And I do have an article about when safe spaces are not actually safe. And if you do have the opportunity to read it. But in summary, the intentions can be good, but the capacity can be limited. And you have to know when to pivot because staying in a space that does not have the container or forcing on the other end, forcing yourself to be the container will put you in a dysregulated state and you will grow apart from the person. Like, God forbid, every time I get off the phone with any of you guys, y'all are sitting here or I'm sitting here going, oh my God, what a sack of potatoes. Over time, that's going to seep into our energetic field, and we're going to do this, right? You have to be able to communicate. I love you too. Yeah, I'm very proud of myself. I'm very proud of my heightened levels of awareness. I'm proud of my ability to articulate this in this way. I'm proud of myself for the intentional prep that I've done all week, well, for the past 2 weeks while working and fulfilling orders and creating and prepping for more work. And that's the other thing is letting people know, like, no, I don't need a donation is great. I put my cash app there, but you know, that's cool. But I'm not trying to just be like that all the time. Like I have a business. I have value. I have things that I can offer because one of the things that was damaged during or paused during the abuse was my creative flow. I was someone was trying to convince me that it had no value. So for y'all to show up and share or purchase something, that does something to my soul, because it's you guys, it's confirmation, right? It's confirmation. And one of the things that is important to me is healthy external validation, internal validation, being supported by external validation in a way that is that works for you, right? I don't care if it's $1. I don't care if it's an $11 ring. I don't care if it's a, yo, look what she made in spite of, ta-da, look. It doesn't matter what it is. Just know that it's going towards my healing. It's not a pacifier. That's the big thing. It's not a pacifier. If someone had showed up in the very beginning, oh, you're going through something, here you go. Yeah, I'd have been able to take care of some stuff, but I was already feeling small and shrunken and undervalued. And that does something to a creative. Even if you mean well, it does something to a creative to have somebody feel like, I'm so sorry for you. I feel sorry for you here. So I'm glad that I'm no longer in that headspace. It was a time and place for it, and I'm thankful for it. But the place that I'm at now is I'm back in my creative bag. I have taken the time to reset myself so that all of my sites are restocked: Etsy, Shopify, the 3 stores that I'm in, and what is the other one? Etsy shop, TikTok shop. I have time where I sit there and I do my inventory. Like when I get off this phone, I got another recharge phone call that I need to make, another check-in that I need to do. I'm going my ass to bed. I don't have to get up early in the morning. I'm going to get some good rest. I want to go somewhere out in nature. If y'all are in Dallas, hit me up, because I'm trying to go frolic in the field somewhere, do some cartwheels and shit. Like, that's where I'm at. And I feel supported in that. And then I know if something happens, and it could, and I get into a moment, a headspace where I'm not okay, where I don't want to get up, where I don't want to go frolicking in the field, I know that I can say, hey, do you have the capacity? Do you have 5 minutes? I'm really having a moment. And if the answer is no, I respect it. Because when the answer is yes, oh my God. And that's what it's all about. Frolic on. For real. For real. Yeah. So if anybody has questions, 7:45, 8:50, yeah, that's about right. Okay. Yeah. If anybody has questions, comments, how to show up, anything they want to share, I really appreciate y'all showing up though, for real, for real. I think I might take a nap. But no, if I take a nap, I'm gonna get up at some weird time like 11 and then be up all morning, all night. And I don't want to do that. Oh, I did want to share um a couple of things that I did, indirect things that helped with my regulated state that didn't necessarily have anything to do with what I went through and the things I have to do to improve my situation. I started listening to throwback music. I have a if you want me to send you the DJ mix, I'll send it to you. Like 90s summertime vibes, Will Smith and old Lil Wayne and the Outcasts and all the Outcasts and then excuse me. And I started watching nostalgic movies. I don't know if y'all are familiar with David and the Gnome from like the 80s. Really weird. It was really weird, but it's on Tubi. And I watched The Wiz and I watched, so was it Jeff Goldblum from Wicked? He was in a movie called The Fly, way ahead of its time. Like, God, it was really good. And it was, oh, if anybody's familiar. And I just went down that road. I have another friend that she wasn't able to join, but when she goes through her stuff, she puts on old school music all day long. And I never thought of that. So I did that. Yeah, The Fly. It was, ugh. Yeah, it had the lady in it from Beetlejuice, I think. Was it her? Yeah, I think it was the lady from Beetlejuice. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, doing that, dancing, of course. And the last thing I forgot to say, we are rewriting this narrative of bye. I'll text you tomorrow. This narrative of what healing looks like. when you see me personally, skibbity bopping and dancing and pop locking it and doing all this other stuff, that is not me saying I'm healed, I'm better, I don't need you, I don't need help. That's me self regulating. That's the goal. So when I'm like that, and then something happens and I'm not like that, that's not, oh, that was phony. That was just for show. That was for social media. No, that's me being human. And I appreciate the fact that none of y'all have said, oh, you'll be fine. Just put on your ballet shoes and dance and get your crystals. I've had people do that. And that's very discouraging. And it made me silent for a while because I was like, if they know that I'm really going through something, they're going to judge me. But now I welcome it because I can do something with it. I can pivot. So good night, you guys. It's 9:02. I think that's great. If y'all think of anything, comments, you can leave it on. If you have a Substack, I think you can comment if you don't. I don't know. But you can comment under the live. Yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything they want to share, um, on here, or you can send it to me directly. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Um, yeah. And I slick do want some cookies. Felicia. I don't mean to out you like that, but she be baking. She be baking our life away. Oh my God. Cakes and pies, and I could barely make up. I made box brownies. I almost did the real ones. I sucked, I punked out, man. I told you, take a picture before you pack it up, just in case they get messed up. Cause I don't expect you to you don't have to buy the special boxes with the bubble wrap. If I get to them and it's I'ma still eat them shits. I'ma still eat them. Cheesecake. Oh yeah, cheesecake, and what is it? Crackers, sardines, and cream cheese. Don't worry about it, y'all. Don't worry about it, y'all. But yeah, okay. Good night. I'll talk to y'all all later for sure. For sure. Bye. Wait, how do I do this? Oh wait. Oh, I can do hearts too. There. Bye.